Kip, what's up, man? Looks like you put on a little weight over the Thanksgiving break there.
That's completely true. I know you're joking, but that is reality.
Mine as well. Mine as well. I actually trimmed my beard down. You can see, and I trimmed it just because it keeps my face looking lean after I put on a few
Yeah,
pounds, and I
yeah,
tend to puff up in the cheeks a little bit.
yeah. So like in 2 months, you'll be like no facial hair whatsoever
Bald.
in an
That's
attempt
right.
to look like you haven't gained weight.
That's right. I just gradually take a little. I go from a two down to a 1.5, down to a one, and so that's how it goes.
Totally.
But I'm leaving the
That's
stash, as you can see. Got to leave the stash.
yeah, yeah. It looks beautiful. It's
Thank you.
glorious.
Glorious. Well, brother, it's good to see you, man. I think we have some questions for the guys left over from Facebook for last week, and I think we have
Last
some
week.
new questions from Facebook this week. So let's get to as many as we can today.
Yep, sounds good. To join us, go to facebook.com/group/order-of-man. Our first question, Gabriel Lord Bloom, where you bloom where you're planted or go forth and change the world. So bloom where you've been planted or
Hmm.
go forth and change the world.
So, okay, here's what I think. If you can't bloom where you're planted, you can't go forth and change the world. That's what
Yeah.
everybody thinks. Everybody thinks, oh, if I get myself in a different circumstance, then I'll be better. This is the whole thing with New Year's resolutions. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait till January 1st, and then I'll eat healthy, and then I'll get my finances in order, and then I'll do X, Y, and Z, and then I'll start my business. I'll do that January 1st.
Yeah.
Bro, if you're gonna do it January 1st, you'd actually do it right now. You do it today. And I'm not a hater on New Year's resolutions. I think the new year is a great time to evaluate where you are, to think about fresh and new beginnings, to think about what you want more out of your life. So great, think about New Year's resolutions, but start today. And we're running across the same concept when you say, man, should I go forth and change the world? Man, if you can't change your environment, like if I'm like, I want to make my dent in the world, but I can't clean up my office space today because it's right here in front of me, then I'm not going to go out and forth and change the world.
Totally.
And
I
I would
can't
also
help.
say
Okay.
this one other thing I would say is if you start changing and blooming where you're planted, start changing your environment and the situation you're in now, you are going to have more opportunity to go forth and change the world. You have to be a good steward over what you've been given and prove that you're capable of handling it before I think it's God. Some people think it's just the universe or karma. But before God gives you more, he says, handle this first and show me you can be a good steward over these resources. Show me you can magnify your talents. Show me that you can handle this amount of wealth that you have. Show me that you can develop and build these relationships. And as you prove that you can, then you're given more. Go check out the parable of
Those are
the talents.
yeah, those are the reps required to take on something bigger,
Yeah.
period. And
Yeah.
I can't help but look at all the correlations. So someone might be listening to this and like, oh yeah, thinking work. So let's just take this principle and transcend it on everything. Well, you know what? My next marriage is going to work. Guess what? If you can't make the current one work, you're probably not going to be able to make the other one work. Oh, you don't like your team or you can't have influence in the position that's been granted to you, but you think that if you get promoted, all of a sudden you'll be in a position of authority and then you'll be able to influence people. Possibility is you're wrong, right? Like this principle transcends to everything, whether it's marriage, whether it's your current job and opportunities that have been placed before you. Just take everything that we've said and apply it to your current circumstance and saying, am I what's the term that we use in the church sometimes?
Magnify your calling.
Exactly. If am I magnifying the calling and the opportunities that have been placed before me right now? And if you're not, then stop looking across the fence or stop looking for the other job or stop looking for the other woman and make sure that you're taking care of and magnifying what's been placed before you. If not for the reps. So that way you're learning and growing in the current circumstances that have been placed before you.
Uh, A couple of friends that have kind of alluded to what I wanted to share with you here is Sal Frasilla with First Form, and then Bert Soren with Sornex, and they both talk about this concept. They talk about it in a different way. I believe it's one or the other talks about one step in front of the other, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. I think that's Sal, and Bert talks about brick by brick, building brick by brick. And I think when we start asking ourselves, well, I want to go out and change the world, noble ambition, but that's the 10th or 20th or 20,000th brick or 20,000th step, which is good to think about it, but you have to take 1 through 19,999 first, and then 20,000 will come. So always bloom where you're planted, and then you'll be able to go out and do what you want to do from there.
And Jordan Peterson, he's talked about this a couple times, but he kind of, I think anyway, my interpretation of his comments around the subject is that people go change the world because they're unwilling to do the difficult thing, which is blooming where they're currently planted. And they latch on to social issues and bigger things outside the realm of control. So that way they can be stressed and victimed and, oh, woe is me and all these horrible things. Meanwhile, their home is a mess and their life is not in order. You know what? You want to care about climate change? Go to the gym, take care of your body, eat healthy first. Then you can have an opinion about something greater than yourself if you can't even manage yourself.
Right. Which is all of us. Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
It's all of us.
I guess I shouldn't sound preachy, but riled up.
No, I just hope guys know that when we share these concepts, I feel like I'm talking to myself. It's almost a video or audio journal for me that I need to go back and listen and be like, oh yeah, you need to do what you said there. What advice you just gave to somebody else, you should take that advice.
Totally. Yeah. I had a couple messages just recently. Someone sent me a message on Instagram. It's like, oh, thank you so much. And blah, blah, blah. And, I'm so grateful that you're in position to share this. And I'm like, just to be really clear, this is present on mind because this is one of my biggest faults.
Right.
And I am dealing with this. So I just want to be, super clear. It's on the tip of my tongue, and it's on my mind a lot because this is an area that I struggle,
Right.
So
yeah,
to
definitely.
Your point.
Yep.
All right. John Stambaugh. Morning, gentlemen. Thanks for what you do. I run a construction related business. We try hard to foster growth in our people and lead by example, both in the field and personally. That said, we are having a hard time finding and retaining good long-term team members. Do you have any thoughts on some tactics for this? Fun.
I don't know the industry real well, but I think this actually could fall in line with our previous question. And what I would say is if you want to find good employees, first step, treat your current employees like just absolutely incredibly.
Yeah.
Take care of them, make sure they're taken care of course, financially, give them opportunity for growth and progress, get to know them. They may all be motivated and driven by different things. Try to figure out what that is, provide those opportunities. And here's what I know about those employees. Those employees likely spend time around other people just like themselves. So if you have high value employees, you're paying them well, you're treating them fairly, you're vested in their lives, you're trying to figure out what they're motivated by, and you have a handful of great employees because you're a great employer, then what I would suggest is you go straight to those individuals who are the best and you say, listen, as well as I do, we're short-staffed. And man, I've been so impressed with the way you've shown up for the past couple of years. And I imagine that 2 or 3 or 5 people who are working in companies they don't like. That's statistically true. You can bet that 70 to 80% the statistics show people are unhappy with their current work, their current career and their work environment. So these people know out of the 10, 20, 100 people they know, 70 of them are dissatisfied with their work and their career. So if you go to those individuals and say, who do you know? It's likely you're going to find some good employees there. I think in addition to what you're probably already doing with job recruiting and recruiting type websites and stuff like this, that's probably going to be a strategy that I would really, really double down on.
Yeah, for sure. We actually have an amazing employee retention. So I'll just share a couple things that are important to me. Ryan, you already mentioned one of them, right? What motivates them? Google intrinsic motivators, right? And it's not money. It's usually something else, right? And now don't get me wrong, money is an issue if it lacks alignment. And the reason why is because what does it feel like when you're underpaying me in a job I love? Eventually I feel what? Not valued and considered, which is an intrinsic motivator, right? And so compensation needs to be aligned, mostly from the perspective of how it feels, right? The other thing I'd focus on is sense of team belonging, and how you show up as leaders within your organization will actually, statistically, employees will stay in a job where they have a strong sense of team belonging and they have a great leader that they work for. Now, what does it mean, team belonging? Unified focus, banding with a team about something bigger than yourselves, about what you're accomplishing. That is inspiring, right? That you want to have that type of work environment. So look at creating that, making sure your leadership team is solid. Anyone in a leadership position needs to be leading from the front, and obviously really good. And then the last thing that really comes to mind for me anyway is, and I think this is where most corporate America messes up, is we don't trust our people. I mean, think about it. Something as simple as vacation request. Hey, Ryan, can I have time off? Oh, let me approve it. What, you don't trust me? I need some equipment. Oh, let me approve it. Red tape everywhere we do in corporate America, which perpetuates the idea that you are not trustworthy. Shake it up. Empower your people to lead from the front, trust them, support them. And you would find it's quite amazing what employees will do when they feel trusted. Now, here's the deal. You get a shitty employee that's not doing a good job, right? You might need to offboard people. It puts the pressure back on you to make sure that you have the right people in the right role. But man, you want an environment where everyone is self-directed and they know what the desired outcome is, and they're committed to just doing their best job possible, not because they're being micromanaged or anything else, right? And so we kind of call that like the conversation around checking where their commitment level is, right? Their buy-in, right? And how are they feeling about their job? And so much of what we do in corporate America, man, we put red tape and process all over things that like really hogties people and their jobs and makes them feel like they're just being micromanaged. Shake it up. Look for opportunities where you might be doing that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like the idea of trust. If you can't trust your employees, what does that say about you and who you've hired and the training or lack thereof that you provided?
Totally. And just think about what damping, I don't know the right term, like what restrictions we're putting on people when we don't trust them. Like if you and I are working on a task and you're bought in, like we're aligned, like, hey, here's the desired outcome, and you give me the freedom to execute. Well, guess what I'll end up doing, Ryan? I'll push through, man. I'll do anything possible to make sure, because it's kind of my baby now, right? Like I'm going to do this my way, but we're both committed to where it needs to go. And that's different than you going, no, all right, Kip, I need you to do A, B, C, and D exactly this way. And where's the joy in that? It's like, go hire a teenager to do that work.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? You're not even using my talents. You're just micromanaging me. And that's disheartening. That's unmotivating, So
for sure. Good. I like it.
Okay. Aaron Campbell, what are you guys focusing on in jiu-jitsu right now? Which positions, which techniques, which concepts?
You're way better at this. When people have asked me this quite a bit.
No, but we're both training a lot. You got,
I know, but not a lot. I've been slacking off in that department, but when people ask me this, it's funny. It's like, you're asking me, like, I take what I can get at this point. You know what you're asking? Like people,
I'm really focused on taking limbs is what I'm focused on right now. Just destruction.
Look, people ask me, they're like, what's your favorite submission technique? And it's like, you're asking me, like, I can actually get somebody in that compromising situation. And I have yet to have been able to do that. But I would say generally, I need to work the bottom game a little better, Because if I can get on top, I can keep somebody
You're
pinned
feeling good
underneath
there.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I may not have a great, submission from there. That's like a go-to, like my go-to I can get. But yeah, I can usually work fairly well from the top. And I like the pressure game anyways. So if somebody's underneath me, the way that Pete explains it to me, and he's like, if you're on top, you want to make that person feel like they're drowning through ice in the water. And if you're on bottom, you want to make that person feel like they're on ice skates and they have no balance and no control. That's the analogy he uses.
Yeah.
And I'm not very good with my bottom game. I have a hard time getting out from underneath. So I need to work that a little bit better, a lot better.
Yeah. See, someone asked this question like 6 months ago. Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
I'm still focusing on, I'm constantly playing with Kimura still. So I'm just playing with it even more.
Yeah.
That's what's on my mind a lot. So that and really grinding it out. I was, not last week, but the week before, it was really interesting. I just walked away from training and I trained open mat for an hour. So it's just open rolls for an hour with a bunch of high level belts. And I didn't go for a single submission.
Just kept rolling.
But I was just going deep water. So I was like, the game I was playing was like, all right, I'm going to get in a really bad position. And then I'm just going to say like, F you, try to submit me, but you can't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just grind it out.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of interesting. Like I walked away, I'm like, like, and it was a nice way to check my ego a little bit. Cause I was like, I didn't have to catch someone. Like I was just being content with grinding it and being uncomfortable. And that was my focus. So it was kind of,
I think that works in the opposite as well, because occasionally I'll train with somebody who very occasionally, very rarely, I'll train with somebody who I clearly have the upper hand. Like it's not much of a contest.
Yeah.
And I mean, probably a year or 2 years ago, I would have just demolished the person. But now it's like, what is this? This is not helping anybody.
How does that serve me? Yeah.
How does it serve me? How does it serve that person just to destroy somebody? And so I've caught myself in those situations where I'm like, yeah, clearly I have the upper hand here. Like not going for a go-to submission. Like I like lapel chokes a lot. So like baseball bat chokes, bread cutters. I like an arm triangle. I really like an arm triangle, but anything around the neck, Ezekiel's, I love like neck chokes. Yeah. So I might get to that position, but then just not finish it, go to something else that I'm not as familiar with. Like the other night I was rolling with somebody and I wouldn't normally do this, but I was like, oh, let's try this. And I had figure four legged around their legs and it's like berimbolo. That's not my game at all.
Yeah.
But I'm like, let's try it, and it didn't work. And totally. The guy laughed and I laughed and we just went back to doing it, but just trying to experiment a little bit in those situations has been helpful for me. The other thing I've learned is, especially with my pectoral muscle, that tear I had, is I tap way quick on that side and it's fine. That's what I've realized. Like, it's fine. And I tell the guys, I'm like, hey, tap. He's like, oh, did I get you? And I'm like, you would have, but I didn't want you to go any further. And he's like, oh, okay. Like letting that ego aside a little bit and realizing that, oh, if you tap, like nobody thinks less of you. They're like, oh, okay, cool. Reset. And so, actually sometimes what I'll do is somebody will get, like, let's say they get me in an Americana or Kimura, which I don't want to mess with on this side. So they'll get me in that position. I'm like, hey, tap. And they're like, oh, okay. And they get up. I'm like, no, stay in side control. Just let me reset again. And so I get my frame in side control and then we go again. Or I'll even tell them like, hey, just let go of that arm. Just tap, get me in the Kimura on this side. And so they'll come around. I'm like, okay, go. And I'll try to get out of an Americana or Kimura on my other side.
Totally. Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because I've started doing that too. Because I don't want to reset the roll.
No, so because they've got a position.
Like so sometimes, like, let's say it's like a heel hook. I'll go, I'll let go, and then give him a chance to start escaping, right? And then we keep raining. Yeah. So I hurp and let go of the submission before he taps, right? So then that way I'm like, oh, okay, and now let's keep progressing right through the
Right.
scenario. Yeah, it's
I think that's a level of maturity developing in jiu-jitsu. You know, new guys, younger guys. I would still consider myself a new guy, but like I'm talking about fresh, like brand new guys. They're not going to do that.
It's all about
But
the tap. Yeah, you're
yeah,
going to tap.
but there comes a point, I think, where it's like, okay, I mean, the tap, like you want to be able to finish a submission. You want to, of course, but there comes a point in time where you're like, yeah, I know I've got this one. So the other thing I've started to do is on my submissions, I've tried to tighten them up a little bit. Like I've noticed me throwing, for example, a baseball bat choke on somebody and it not working. I'm like, why is this not working? And so really thinking about little, you know, maybe my hands weren't together. Maybe I didn't drop my elbow the right way. So thinking about those, tightening up the procedures or the steps for a higher finish rate on some of that stuff.
Yeah. The other thing that's been on my mind lately, we'll stop after this.
No way. Let's keep going.
Is distance, you know, like that's been on my mind a lot. I've done some self-defense seminars, and so it's been on my mind more. So now when I'm training at the gym, I'm like, all right, managing distance, closing the distance, not hanging out in a bad position where I could get hammer fisted and knocked out if we were striking. And so that's on my mind a lot too, like envisioning punches being thrown as part of my training, just to kind of not lose that aspect of it.
Yeah, that's something I haven't done at all. That would round out my game.
Yeah.
So cool. All right, what's
next? Always fun. All right, Brian Scholes. A while back, you spoke about a potential father-daughter event, but the logistics of it were a bit of a hindrance versus a father and son event. Have you thought more about holding such an event, or do you think you'll stick strictly with father and sons events? As an aside, finding your podcast when I did a few years ago has helped change my life. I may not always get it right, but with God, the work you do, and personal determination, I've been on a path of improvement far longer than I ever have before. God bless you and your family.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm glad to know the work's making a difference. That's of course why we're doing it. Yeah. You know, I think a father-daughter event would be awesome. I'd have to think about that. I don't know if that'll take place in 2023 or not. I really would like to do it. I have a daughter. I don't talk about her a whole lot by design. I'm obviously clearly more protective of her than I am of my boys. I'm sure you are as well. It's just the nature of it. So yeah, I don't know. That's the best answer I can give. I would like to do it. I would just have to think about, because the way we run them now, it's in my barn. It's dads and their sons. They're in my barn all together. It's like communal living. They're all there changing. It just wouldn't, it wouldn't be appropriate with a father and a daughter. So we could still do the event, and we probably would do it very much the same, except for the living quarters. They'd have to go to their own hotels or something, and
do it like the main event almost.
Yeah. So we'll think more on that, and we'll let you guys know as that comes online.
Evan Vanden Turn, how important is it to have a morning nightly routine? I've recently started a nightly routine and I've seen many changes. Would either of you be willing to share what you do during those times?
Yeah, I mean, the morning routine, I think, is something that everybody hits on. So we could go through that. But again, you've heard us talk about, you've heard everybody talk about it. The evening routine for me really starts at the end of my workday, because what I like to do is I like to evaluate my day. So I'll get out my battle planner and I'll go through and see what I did, see what I didn't get done, think about how my day and strategy is going to be for the next day, and really just start mapping out the next day this evening. So that's how I shut down my work type schedule. As far as at home, you know, we really like to have dinner as a family. That's an important function. That doesn't always happen, but I would say 80 to 90% of the time we're having family dinner, except for Wednesday nights, because I'm gone on Wednesday nights training and things like that. So I'm not doing it on Wednesday nights. And then in the evening, you know, the kids, like, we'll usually I don't know, we might do Legos, or we have mats in the front room, so we might wrestle around a little bit, but I try to spend as much time with them for a couple hours in the evening as we can. So we get that done. Put them all to bed. So we have a little routine for putting them to bed. The littles go to bed earlier than the older ones. We stay up a little bit later with the older ones. And then when all the kids are in bed, my wife and I might watch a show together, or one of the nicest things is just we just reading. Like we'll just sit in bed and read. And I'm reading The Road right now. And so, yeah, we'll just read and fall asleep. And that's kind of nice. I started drinking this like nighttime tea as well. That was probably a year ago. And I don't do that every night,
So
but
good.
it's so good. And it's all natural. It just soothes you, relaxes you. And man, that just puts me out really quickly as well. So yeah, that's my evening routine.
That reminds me, I need to buy some of that stuff. I took a picture of it last time I was at your
Oh, you did?
place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
then
don't know
it
what it
just
is.
reminded
Trish
me because
makes
I
it.
was like,
So
that stuff was good. That worked out well. I suck. I suck at this. It's a shit show. So it's like we are running around all the time. Dinner's at a different time. Usually around 8, I start yelling. Around 9, I start laying down the hammer. I'm pissed off. Kids are in bed too late, and I go to bed frustrated and upset. My wife's angry at me. That's our routine.
that's your routine for the evening. Sounds like it could
Currently,
use some work.
yeah, yeah. I need to. I just, man, we don't have a routine. It's chaotic, and I think we just have too much going on, and I need to work with Asia to like, I don't know, get a routine going. We're not on the same page, and we're kind of all over the place. One thing that we have been doing that's kind of nice, and I'll take zero credit for it. It's actually my wife. Right before we say family prayers, she will say everyone to sit on the floor in the living room, and we'll do these stretches. So
Oh, that's
like
cool.
these sitting stretches. Yeah, because she's doing them because her back's hurting her a little bit. And so she's just incorporated this. So we have like this mini little like yoga stretch session.
That's cool.
Yeah, for like 15 minutes. And then we'll say prayers, read scriptures, and go to bed. So we're at least doing that part. But usually there's a whole lot of yelling and frustration leading up to it, which totally makes the whole scripture and prayer thing completely like in conflict. And I'm just like every night going, oh man.
But
so
yeah, I mean, the fact, even that though, scripture and prayer, we don't do that. That's something that we can incorporate. That'd be really helpful. But yeah, those are good things. It's hard too when you have older kids who are all involved in sports, like they're all involved in different sports. We don't really, we had that during football season. It was a little rough because my 2 oldest boys play football on different teams. And so and then our daughter was doing dance. So that was a little rough. So as they get older, that becomes harder and harder to do. But yeah, I think it's important as best you can get it down, nail it down.
Yeah. I do like what you said though. And I've done a pretty decent job at this is I used to leave the office rushed with the idea that like, oh, I'll do that when I get home tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And I've stopped doing that.
Yeah.
So I don't leave the office unless I'm done leaving the office. And when I leave, I'm leaving, right? AKA, I don't plan to do any work when I go home because I've learned if I try to multitask, that never works out well. And I'm usually angry and I'm frustrated and let's be honest, like priorities, right? Like I'm going home to be with my family, not to work. So
I know I just feel, there's the family dynamic, but I just feel mentally, I just feel better. I'm more confident when I actually have a list of things that I need to get done during the day.
Yeah.
So I actually come prepared to the office with a list of things I need to get done. I could pull it out and have the 10 things there.
And then you update that list before you call it a day. So you know where you're at. Yeah.
And it's a weekly planner. It's not a daily planner. It's a weekly planner. So I write down everything for the week and some of it gets X'd out and new things get added to it for the week. But man, I'll tell you, if I do 6 or 7 of those things on that list, man, I feel really good. And it's one thing I've noticed as well is it's easier to shut off when you know you've been productive at work. When you haven't been productive and you've been dinking around, you didn't get anything accomplished. You don't even know what you did or what you should have done.
Behind the 8 ball. Yeah.
And then that of course is a bigger conflict with your other priorities. So I just feel better when a lot gets done. And so I just crank, not all the time, admittedly, but when I do, man, when I'm firing on all cylinders, everything is better. Definitely the family life is better.
William Caleb Hare what sort of criteria does you and your family have for getting involved in a church? Criteria for getting involved in a church.
Well, we actually started going to a Baptist church recently. I would say over the past 6 months, 5 or 6 months, maybe 4 or 5 months, regardless. And I'll tell you the reason that we not upset with, but the reason we kind of stopped going to the LDS church, frankly, is during COVID, there was a lot of weak leadership that we really struggled with. They wanted to mask everybody and we couldn't congregate, and they didn't want us to sing, and they didn't want us to like talk to each other before, after. Very strange, very strange. I understand to a degree in the early days of COVID, I get it, but it was pretty apparent what was going on very quickly. And I was really, really jaded with that, unfortunately. But we have some friends here that had been going to this church and have really enjoyed it. And I'll tell you what they did. That they're just good people. That's it. They fellowshipped the way Christians should fellowship. It wasn't always like, hey, go to church, gospel, here's this. No, it wasn't like that. It was like every time I talked to them, Betsy and Dom, like I could feel that they actually cared about us. Like they were vested in us. They cared about me. They cared about my wife. They cared about our children. They did nice things for us. They invited us to their place. They wanted to go to like they did things. And then I felt that. I was like, man, there's something different about these two. And I think they invited us to church at one time, and we went to church. And the criteria that really helped me see that I really liked going was, number one, I felt the Spirit. That to me is the biggest criteria. Like if you're not feeling anything, something's wrong. You should feel something. Yeah. So I felt the Spirit like I haven't in a very long time. It was actually hard for me, even during singing, to not be emotional as we were singing. And I'm not an overly emotional person. So that was an indicator. I'm like, that's weird. Our pastor, strong, man, convicted. The way that he shares his message, the way that he breaks down scripture, even, I won't say his political views, but cultural views are in line with what I think of Christianity. And he's not afraid to share those things. And then just in general, the fellowship that goes on within the community. People have potluck dinner they do once a month. In fact, next week they're doing it at our house. So like there's other things outside of just gospel and the Spirit that really made us feel good for being there. That's what I would say.
I like it. Scott Thistle, easy times make soft people make tough times, etc. We have very hard times on the horizon. What can we do to start making tough people as soon as possible?
Well, we got to get tough now. So we have to put ourselves in difficult situations, challenging situations, right? It's like the other day we were talking about, what was it? Suffering versus discomfort, I think. So we need to put ourselves in situations where we're not comfortable. We need to try different things. We need to go speak on stage. We need to try new physical challenges, whether that's Jiu Jitsu or go to the gym. The more that we can do now, the better off we're going to be. And then we also need to base our fundamental life views on principles. So that this is why we talk about the church. It's principally based, and you don't even have to be spiritual to understand why you should live like that. And I don't think that's exclusive to Christianity. A lot of those are Christian-based principles, but the reality is they can be secular based, and you're just going to live a better life if you follow those anyways. So if we're basing our decisions on strong fundamental principles, then we're going to live a better life. So we need to do that ourselves, and we need to refrain from acting in ways that aren't congruent with those principles. That's a challenge, admittedly, for me and for everybody else. And then we need to teach that sound principle-based instruction to our children. And we can't let them deviate into this gender nonconformity stuff. We can't turn into a communist culture. Like we can't lock each other down. We can't spend as a government or a citizenry an exorbitant amount of money that we don't have in exchange for nothing. Like we need to become self-reliant as a country. We're definitely not anymore. We were at one point. All of these things are just principally sound. We need to live that individually, and we need to foster that in our children. And the more we deviate from that, the worse it's going to get. Temporarily, it might feel really good, but the worse it's going to get, and it's going to get ugly if we can't return back to principles.
Yeah. And it's done. I'm assuming you'd agree, that starts in the home.
Yeah, of course.
It's funny, we politics, over the last couple months, everyone's like, oh, vote this, vote that. And it's like, or we have a tendency to latch on to what we don't like, right? We're like, oh my gosh, society and government or whatever. And we kind of look, I don't know, this is just my take on this, but we kind of look at politics as the answer. It's like, oh, well, vote the right people in. Actually, you know what? This wouldn't even be an issue. Some of these would not even be issues if it wasn't for the citizens of this country. And that's the home. That's the people, and so some of these political issues are political issues because of, to be frank, because of our citizens. And so you want to make a larger lasting impact. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying voting is not important, but like, that's only one aspect of it, right? What are you doing in your neighborhood? What are you doing in your community? Right? That's probably more impactful and something that we should be focused on way more than who to quote unquote vote for. Mm-hmm. Let's be honest. Whoever's running for office is running for office and will be voted based upon the people in your neighborhood and in society as a whole. So you don't like something, agreed. Focus on that.
Yep. And help other people do the same.
There, but yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think that's right in line with what he's asking.
Joshua Gherkin, side hustles. I'm in seminary full-time, but I want to bring in a little extra income. So I'm assuming he's looking for some ideas on generating some side hustles.
I don't have any ideas for you. You have ideas. You just got to pick one. Like, I know you have ideas. Yeah. I know you do. We've had conversations. Like, you have ideas. So pick one and run with it. And if you don't know what they are, here's a couple of questions to ask. What would I be doing if money were of no concern? All my income, expenses, all that stuff, all taken care of. Don't have to worry about money. How would I spend my days? Okay, I would me personally, I'd probably travel a little bit. I would love to get more into woodworking and building. Like, there's things there I would do, and so that gives us an idea that there might be something there that we should pursue. Another one: what are you doing when time moves the fastest? What are you doing when time moves the fastest? So like Jiu Jitsu, time flies for me. It's because I'm having a good time, right? I'm immersed. I'm present. If I'm hunting, time's going pretty quick. If I'm building, Legos with my youngest son, like, time's moving pretty fast. There's things there. There's opportunities there. Another question is, what do people ask you for advice or help with? Because they recognize that you're good at something, whether it's a project or marketing. I had somebody in the community reach out to me and ask about marketing the other day. They said, hey, I'm trying to build up my social media following and presence, and here's some of my concerns, and here, I don't want to come across as prideful. Like, really good questions. And they were asking me. Well, that's an indicator they think I'm pretty good at that. So you start answering these questions, and you're going to see a common thread run between all of these different things that you're doing. And that might lead you towards a path of a side hustle. That's what I would do. That's what I did when I started Order of Man.
And Ryan, the reason why you'd focus on those things, I'm assuming, is because there's some passion there, some interest there. And because there's passion, interest, your probability of success is even greater. Is that kind of the reason?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And, people are like, oh, there's no money in that. No money in what? Like, I've seen some weird stuff that people are making boatloads of money with. Like, think about Jake and Logan Paul. Like, I don't care if you like them or not. They're abrasive and yeah, of course. What do they even do?
Yeah. I'm not even sure. I don't know.
Not sure. Yeah. I mean, I know
whatever.
I know one of them. I think it's Logan is in the WWE, and I know Jake, is trying to build up his boxing marketing career. Like outside of that, what do they do? And yet they're making millions and millions and millions of dollars. Another one I hear from my oldest all the time, Andrew Tate. Like, I don't know what he does. I have no idea what he does.
Yeah.
Like you can make money doing anything, absolutely anything. So follow what is intriguing, enticing, interesting to you. And yeah, you can make money doing it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Anthony Dito, how
Can
do
I
you
say
take
one other
time to
thing, Kip,
relax?
on that
Yeah,
last
yeah,
one?
for sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Whatever you do, learn to be a good marketer. Always focus on marketing. The better marketer you can be, the more money you can make, the more people you can serve. If you don't have the marketing stuff down, yeah, you probably won't make any money. You got to learn how to be a good marketer. So I'll leave that there for now. That might be a whole other lesson.
Anthony Dito, how do you take time to relax and focus on family in between the grinds of work and life, just coming out of the holiday and getting that time to recharge and relax? So, and we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, maybe as part of your evening routine, but maybe there's more there.
I'm not really good at this, and it's created some challenges habitually in my relationship, is because I focus so heavily on what we're doing here because I love it. Like I really actually enjoy it. And so it's hard for me to shut it off in the evening and think about something else or shift focus or shift gears. So that's been a challenge. Over the past couple of months, I have been very focused on trying to build some of that back up. So, Legos, easy, right? I could spend a half
with them.
Yeah, doing something they want to do and they pick, So my youngest, he loves Legos. He also likes to draw. So occasionally he'll say, "Hey dad, can we draw?" My daughter, she actually likes to wrestle. She's like, "Hey dad, can we wrestle?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's go wrestle." My second son, he loves shoes, like Nikes and like the old school
He's got
ones.
a shoe
And
game,
then
huh?
he loves shoes, and he's like, "Look at these shoes. These are, $5,000, and these are rare because of this and that." And so he'll watch a video on YouTube about shoes, and he's like, "Dad, I want to like display all my shoes." So with him, we built a shelf rack in his room, and then I was at Walmart like a week ago, and they have the LED light strips, kind of like these right here, that can change any color. Yeah. So I bought 2 or 3 of them, and I brought them home. I'm like, "Look, dude." And he's like, "Oh, that's cool." I'm like, "Look, we can put them on your shelves and you could change what color you want." And so we did the project. And so he's got his shoes displayed with their boxes, and then it got the LED lights on there. I don't care about shoes, but he loves them. So it's like, I love them.
Yeah.
My oldest, man, anything hunting related, like, in fact, I was going to turn my camera, but I can't do it because it's this external one, not on my computer. But we just hung our deer mounts up on the wall. So that looks pretty cool. So anything hunting related, if I go out, and we could look at our trail cameras, we could go out for a walk and look at tracks in the field. Like, he loves that stuff. So you figure out each one of them, what they're into, and you make it happen.
Yeah. Ideas, Ryan, let me say it this way, because I struggle with this as well. And I think there's tactics, right, that we could focus on, but maybe like, how do you get in the mindset that like, hey, you know what, this is more important? You know what I mean? Is there recommendations that you have of like, I don't know, getting behind the idea that like, I need to let go of the grind and work, and focusing on family?
I got one for you. Imagine if you couldn't do your job anymore for whatever reason. You couldn't do your job. What would you do? Well, you'd find a new job, right? You'd go out and you'd find a new job. You'd find a new company to work with. You'd start a business. Like, you'd do something, but you'd find something else.
Yeah.
Okay. Now imagine your family's no longer there. Your family's gone. What do?
Yeah.
Bro, you're devastated. So which one's more important? That's it. Like sit with that for a minute, or talk with somebody who's gone through a divorce or hasn't seen their children in 3 years. Like, go ahead and talk with somebody about that. See how they feel about their life.
Yeah.
That should be fuel enough. Sometimes it isn't for us, and we have to learn the hard way, and we will, but Yeah. Think on that for a minute. I think that'll
Yeah.
change your perspective.
I think a common pitfall that I have is I've said this so many times on this podcast, and you think I would have learned by now, but it's just like this default behavior of mine is that today's the exception. You know, that my lack of spending family time tonight is because today is an exception. It was a rough day, and that tomorrow is going to somehow be different, you know, and the reality of it is it's never different. Like,
I think that idea of today's the exception is okay if it's really the exception.
yeah. Yeah.
There
But
are
if it's a
times where
trend, yeah.
yes, then it's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. All right. Gabriel Lord, my 14-year-old daughter and I want to start a podcast about dad-daughter topics and
Awesome.
how to navigate the current social landscape as a teenager. Any tips?
No, just start. I don't just start. Just do it. I mean, you're going to learn along the way. That I think I did a little bit of a rant. I think it was last week when people ask these questions because they want, and I don't know that they're looking for an excuse necessarily. It just smells of like inaction to me. That's all. It's like, I don't have any tips. Like, just get a microphone. You know, we use the Shure 7MB or something like that. I don't know what it is. Shure 7MB or something. You can check that out. Um, yeah, and just do it and just learn. I would say a tip is just make sure you're constantly evaluating what you're doing so that you can get better. Keep that open lines of communication with her outside of doing it on the podcast. So you know how she's feeling about it. And then consistency is a big one. Even with my son, he said something the other day and I felt really bad about it actually. And he didn't seem as excited about the podcast. And I asked him about it. He says, well, yeah, because you made it seem like it was unimportant is what he said to me. And I said, really? What, like, how did I do that? And he said, well, you know, we would be scheduled to record and then you had something come up and then we couldn't record. And then we went a week without doing it. And I was like, oh yeah. And he's like, and you know how that made me feel? This is what he said. He said, it made me embarrassed because I thought people would judge me because of that I was inconsistent, but really it was you who was being inconsistent. And I was like, oh man, hurt my heart, you know, like, I mean, he was right. He was 100% right.
It's awesome he shared that.
Yeah. And I honored him for that because, and I acknowledged that because I want him to be able to share those things. So I didn't blow up. I was like, man, that first, I really appreciate you telling me. And second, that must've been really hard for you to tell me because, you know, that's an uncomfortable conversation. So I really admire your courage because I want him to continue to do that. Yeah. So he got a little jaded on it because I made it feel unimportant. I made him feel like what I was doing was more important than what he was doing or what he wanted to do. And that was my fault, you know? So we've been a lot more consistent with his podcast, Man in the Making. And it's been a lot of fun, you know, and admittedly there's days where I'm like, man, I don't want to do this, but you know what? He wants to do it and I committed to doing it. So we're going to do it.
Yeah. Joe Courtney, how do you deal with one child, son, who has an obvious interest in something and wants to continually work to improve at it, which you also enjoy, and have another child, which is also a son, who hasn't found his thing that he loves yet? How do you avoid favoring one over the other? The ages are 12 and 9, if that helps. I'm not saying my 9-year-old has to make decisions, but I'm constantly worried that he will think that I spend more time with his brother and favor him because his brother loves something that I also enjoy, while he only casually likes it, which I'm totally fine with.
Bro, I could have wrote that question. Like that could have been a question that I would have wrote. Cause that's my oldest son. Him and I are very much the same. We hunt, we do all the things together. And
like
my
the
others,
same things.
not as much, you know? So where he hasn't found his thing yet, what I would say is make that the project and the adventures. Like, let's try different things, you know, and look for those opportunities. But that could be fun for you too. You know, like shoes. I don't like shoes. I don't care about shoes all that much. Not that big a deal to me, but I do like building. You know, I like using my hands. I like using the tools and woodworking. And so we built the shelves and, you know, it took an afternoon, but not a big deal. And we were able to bond over shoes, but not shoes exactly, but something, you know. And I remember years ago we went to Vegas. I took my oldest son to, or my second son to Vegas because I know he's really into cars. And we went to a couple of different racetracks where you could rent a car and drive it around the racetrack, but he was too light at the time. So I think we went to 2 or 3 racetracks, and all of them he was too light for. So then I went to the exotic car rental place. I'm like, fine, we'll just rent a car. And we rented, I didn't even know what it was, like an Acura BMG, or who knows? I don't even know what it was. He knew exactly what it was.
MDX, Acura MDX.
Maybe, sure. I don't know.
Okay.
It was a choice between that and I think it was a Lamborghini. And I'm like, what do you want? I'm like, he's gonna say the Lamb. That's what I want. Lamborghini. He's like, oh, I want the Acura, blah blah blah. I'm like, really? And the guy's like, he's like, really? And my son's like, yeah. And then we were getting some paperwork filled out, and the guy came up to me and he's like, hey, why did your son choose that car over the Lambo? I'm like, I don't know. That's the one he wanted. He's like, well, he made the right choice. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, that's a way better car than that Lambo. But most kids would go for the Lambo. I'm like, well, he knows cars, so I don't know. I just let him pick. And we spent 3 or 4 hours driving around Vegas, and you know, we went to those stacks of rocks that are different colors. You know, have you seen those? Just outside of Vegas.
Outside of Vegas?
South side of Vegas. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. We just kind of explore and we find things that they're interested in, and then you just do it. But make figuring it out the project and the thing that's fun. And I think you could have a pretty good time with that as well.
Yeah.
Also give him some one-on-one time. Like, it doesn't have to always be his brother and him. Just say, hey, you know what? Thursday, you and me, like, let's go. I don't know where you live. Let's go to the shooting range, or let's go do jujitsu together. Or, hey, there's this art class, or, hey, I know you really like cooking. Like, there's a cooking class. Like, we'll go over to that cooking class and we'll do that. And then we'll grab a bite to eat afterwards. We can do that. We can all do that. Like, one thing I did last week is I took my daughter on a date. You know, it's been a long time since we did that. And I said, hey, would you like to go on a date with me? And she's like, what? Like a date? I'm like, yeah, like a date, you and me. She's like, yeah, I'd love that. So we went to Walmart and did a little Christmas shopping for her brother, who she has. We rotate gifts. She has this year, and her mom. And then we went to dinner. I got a reservation for dinner, and just her and I, and we had a great time. You know, and that's all it took. It took, I don't know, an hour and a half, and it was a great time. It was a great evening.
Totally. All right. Last question. Dylan Isaacson. My family does a monthly call to keep in touch that seems spurred from outside sources. Parents thought it was a good idea, but it seems like no one is investing in it other than my parents to see their kids and grandkids. Makes sense. I can see it being more a spiritual enriching experience for everyone, as well as getting to see everyone once a month, which was part of the initial goal. How do I move forward with starting to try and change it so it can be more than it is now for my family?
I just think you say exactly what you said to your family. So on that call, you say, hey, look, I get the reason we're doing this. Everybody's going to be connected. There's the spiritual element of it. Like, I think it's really cool. But honestly, I don't feel like everybody's in it, which is cool. We're all busy. We all have our lives and stuff. I had an idea for next month when we do it, and I would like to run next month's call or visit or whatever it is. Is it a call or a visit? I didn't quite catch that.
I think it's a online call, like a video
like a Zoom call or something.
I'm getting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say, so guys, if you don't mind, like, I have some cool ideas and I want to surprise you with them. But would you mind if I ran
try it out
next month's video? Like, everybody's going to say yes, of course. And then you just run it. And then you ask them, like, what did you guys think of that? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What part should we keep in there? What should we kind of nix? Yeah. Just share it with them.
Well, and the power of ownership is right here, man. So Dylan, you do one week or 1 month, and then you go to your sibling and go, you get a host next month.
You get next month.
And you get to choose it. And now they're going to be invested in a way different way than just you running the call. If they get to play a part in what that looks like. So enroll them and have them actually participate as well. And that should get more people active.
One thing, we actually did this on Zoom. I think it was last year that we did it. All the family got together and everybody called in on Zoom, and it was a talent show, which was actually, kind of cool.
Super funny.
Yeah. It was just a little talent show. Each person had what they were going to do. You know, some people read, other people sang. The cousins, you know, did a little, like, we did a little dance, like me and my wife and kids, we choreographed a dance. So we danced for everybody else. Like, it was fun, you know? So something like that's always
Yeah.
a good time too.
Yeah. Cool.
All
All right,
right,
man.
got it.
That's all the questions for today.
Okay.
So key things, Cyber Monday, I'm assuming we still have some sales at store.orderofman.com for the holiday.
Well, no, because it's Wednesday. This is released on Wednesday. So
Oh yeah. Tough luck.
the stuff ended on Monday. There are some clearance items you can go check out, but yeah, you can get your stuff. We'll probably do some more sales before the end of the year anyway. So store.orderman.com.
Yeah. And then the other thing is we're going to be opening up membership for the Iron Council in a couple weeks. So stay tuned to learn more about the Iron Council. Go to orderofman.com/Iron Council. That's our exclusive brotherhood. And if you want to get in for the new year, your window of opportunity is going to be in a couple weeks. So you're going to have to act on that.
Yes, sir. Hopefully to see you guys in there. We've got a good group of guys, and we're going to do a lot of great things coming into 2023.
Cool.
All right, brother.
All
well,
right,
I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you. Thanks for the questions. Hopefully we gave you some things to think about. And we will be back on Friday for your Friday field notes. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.